I applied to 22 medical schools, got 7 interview invites, 1 waitlist, and 5 acceptances. In this video, I'm going to tell you which schools these were, why I said no to the schools I turned down, including my dream school, and finally, which school I'm actually going to attend. I wanted to make this video because seeing other people do what I wanted to do always helped me be more confident and feel like I wasn't alone. So I hope this helps some of you in the same way. Now, before jumping into the schools I applied to, I'll give a quick overview of my application so you can see where I was at in terms of competitiveness. My undergrad GPA was 3.98 cumulative and 3.94 science. My MCAT was 518. I had 517 hours of community service split between clinical and non-clinical volunteering, 776 hours of research in social science and epidemiology, 1,300 hours in leadership as a chief scribe, French teacher, and a project manager, 1,700 hours working in an emergency department, 55 hours shadowing various doctors, and 7 publications. Obviously, the experiences I had and the things I learned were way more important than the number of hours I spent on all of my activities, so I'll do a deep dive in another video on all of that, but I hope that gives you a bit of a rough idea of what it actually looked like when I applied. So with that in mind, let's jump into the schools I applied to on my primary application. We've got Eastern Virginia, Georgetown, Harvard, Lewis Katz at Temple, Mayo, NYU Long Island, Northwestern, Ohio State, Penn State, UPenn, St. Louis, Stanford, Texas Tech, Tufts, Tulane, U of A Phoenix, UCLA, U Cincinnati, U Miami, University of Utah, UVA, Vanderbilt, WashU, Cornell, and Yale. That's a ton of schools, but after I submitted my primaries and before I submitted my secondary applications, there were a few schools I decided to cut. Lewis Katz and Penn State got dropped because if I was gonna live in Pennsylvania, I wanted to be going to UPenn and not the other two. Mayo Clinic, I dropped because the dual program I was interested in requires you to move in the middle of med school, and I was not about that. NYU Long Island set up to train primary care doctors, and I wasn't sure what I wanted to do, so I cut them from the list as well. U Miami secondary was just super long, and I didn't really want to do it, so I didn't. And Vanderbilt got cut because I didn't want to live in Tennessee. Looking back, I applied to really selective schools, and even though I felt pretty okay about my application, I wasn't sure if I could get into any of them. I was haunted every day by every little thing I could have done better, and it got really hard to stay positive about the application cycle. But soon I started getting interview invites. My momentum shifted, and I finally felt like I might have a chance of getting in. It started with Georgetown, then Texas Tech, University of Arizona, Harvard, UCLA, the University of Utah, and Tulane. The rest of the schools hadn't gotten back to me, but I was stoked because these were 7 of the schools I wanted to go to very most, and I was so grateful they were giving me an opportunity to interview. October 15th is the first day med schools are allowed to accept anyone, and I was so relieved when I got calls from Texas Tech and University of Arizona to let me know I'd been accepted on that day. I was beside myself, and it was just so surreal to know that I was gonna be a doctor. It's the craziest mix of feelings, but at this point I still hadn't heard back from my top choice, which was UCLA. I really wanted to go there for a lot of reasons, but it was a massive long shot because I'm not from California and they don't accept very many people from other states. I loved everything about the school, and even though it was unlikely, I was hoping that my interviews there went well enough that they would accept me. I just had to wait and see. In the meantime, Georgetown waitlisted me and I was accepted at the University of Utah in Tulane. I was thrilled about this. Both of these schools are fantastic, and actually shadowing at the University of Utah is one of the things that originally got me into medicine, so it was fun to see that come full circle. But anyways, I was sitting on 4 acceptances to amazing schools that each nearly had everything I was looking for in a med school, but it was getting closer to when I had to decide where I wanted to go. I still didn't have an acceptance from UCLA, but I started narrowing down the options, expecting that eventually I would get rejected. So I pulled out from Texas Tech, University of Arizona, and Tulane, and I kept my spot at the University of Utah. Here's why. Texas Tech honestly was one of my favorite schools. They had everything I wanted, and they offered me a great scholarship and low tuition, but Lubbock was really far from family and friends, which ended up actually being the deal breaker there. I had by far the best experience with the application at the University of Arizona Phoenix. It's a fantastic school. I love the facilities, the students, and everyone I met. I dropped my acceptance there mostly because the dual program I was interested in was being discontinued, so that was a hard, straightforward choice. Tulane is another incredible medical school, and I was really impressed by the opportunities their students have in research in the community, but at the end of the day, the cost of attendance was so much higher than it was at other schools, so I had to turn it down. One of the biggest reasons I kept the University of Utah is that they had offered me a really generous scholarship that made it substantially cheaper than any of the other schools. As I got closer to the reality of med school, I realized how much the cost matters long term, so this quickly became more important to me. There's 100 other reasons I wanted to be there, like the curriculum, their dual programs, and having family in the area. But long story short, we decided on Utah. We found a house close by, signed on a lease, and planned on moving there. Honestly, there was really nothing better than finally having clarity on where I was going so we could plan our whole life around it. But then the unexpected happened, and UCLA sent me an acceptance, and we really didn't know what to do. I spent so long dreaming about going to UCLA and how great it would be. But suddenly I realized that that feeling had faded a little bit. A few weeks before, I would have definitely gone in a heartbeat. But after making concrete plans to be in Salt Lake, it was really difficult to backtrack on the decision making. My wife and I spent the next week working through pros and cons and all the emotional dimensions of what we should do. We loved both scenarios, so we decided to do whichever was cheaper. I coordinated with UCLA to see what kind of financial aid package they could offer me, and after crunching all the numbers, it turned out that it would be cheaper to be in Utah. So we declined the offer from UCLA and committed to the University of Utah. This year has been an absolute whirlwind, and at the end of the day, I'm so excited to be going to an incredible medical school, and I can't wait to see what the future holds. So subscribe to follow along. Take it easy, you guys.